Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing today? We are going to be talking about Scritch by Lindsay Curry, and this is the first time I've ever did like a live chat about a group read, so we're kind of winging it and seeing how it goes. So, I guess we'll start with like, what did everybody think of it? Like, what was your rating for it and everything?
Okay, so I think I just finished it Thursday or Friday, and I kind of did hold off on it to the end
I was
because
gonna say it's a little bit fresher in your
exactly
head
that's
than
why
mine.
I wanted to keep it fresher. I really enjoyed this one. So, like I said, in the beginning, I was enjoying it. A little bit toward the middle, I was like, we've gone off a little bit, but then at the end, I thought it came back, and it was so well done. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it.
Is the middle part like kind of like the friendship debacle, kind of maybe, or I don't
I
know if that.
think it was more like when these things were happening and like then the parents weren't believing them, because I thought for like your father to be so into this, like he would almost be excited at the thought of these things
That's
happening.
why she didn't want to tell him.
Yeah, that's I know, but I'm just like, but I felt like that would have
Yeah.
been that could have added to it. I don't know.
What
That
did
would
you
have
think?
taken it in a whole different direction.
Yeah,
Like if she
true.
went, "Hey, Dad, there's a ghost."
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, that middle part got me because, like you said, like she didn't want to tell her dad. Like that's the dude that would believe you.
yeah, yeah,
And then we went off on this whole like my best friend doesn't want to be my best friend anymore tangent.
yeah,
Mhm.
Oh,
yeah.
and there might be a ghost.
Right. Yeah,
That's I gave it 4 stars as well, but I was the same way. Like the beginning, I was like, "Ooh, this is good," and then the end, I went, "Okay, that put it back at 4." But in the middle, I just kind of went,
See,
yeah,
I just love the whole thing, and so I didn't really even think about I figured, the fact she doesn't want to tell her dad made sense to me because he is like this huge ghost, and since she doesn't want anything to do with it, and she didn't want to be a part of his ghost tour.
right. It's true.
So
See, and I understood that, but not wanting to tell him, and then like her brother, and that whole her brother has a thing for her new friend, and just like I
yeah.
get they're middle schoolers. I completely 100% it rang true. I just there was a little bit more of that than I was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad though that aspect of things like kind of wrapped up nicely. You know what I mean?
Okay, I think that maybe you guys would like It Found Us a little bit better, maybe. It still has like the whole like brother friend thing, or helping her with the or like helping with a ghost and things like that. And it does have like the parents aren't really aware of what's going on, but I think it's maybe a little bit more to your liking on the fact that they're trying to hide from the parents because the parents don't want them to go out because scary things have happened and they don't want them to go
Okay.
out, so they're sneaking around. So
See,
you
and
might,
that makes more sense
yeah,
to
so you
me.
might like that one a little bit more
Okay.
because it did have a really cool spooky ghost story in it as well. And so we have Amy here, and she says, "Hi everyone, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I like the spooky vibes in this book. Are we giving out spoilers? I'm guessing we all are here because we read the book. Yeah, there will be probably spoilers because I don't think you can have a live chat about a book without spoiling. I mean, we do that. We try to do that on Killing Time with Cozies with our light deals, and it's really hard.
Yeah, plus I think people want to talk about like the specifics of what they
Yeah,
enjoyed and what they didn't, you know?
yeah.
And I don't want
So
to have to be like, the thing that happened, wink wink. Like I want to be like, oh, and when this happened,
yeah, and Alicia said, I thought the book was wonderful. It had more layers than just a spooky middle grade, and she gave it 5 stars.
Nice.
Do if you like the all the layers in this one, I think one that did a really good job is Whispering Pines. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
remember the author, but that one has so many layers.
That's still my favorite
Yeah.
middle grade
Yes.
series.
That was really scary to me it was.
Yeah, it was really creepy. Yeah, that one is by Heidi Lang and Katie Barkowski.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I finished that whole series, and I'm sad it's over.
How many are there? Because I read the
4.
first two, and then the third one wasn't available yet. So there's
There's 4.
4.
Yeah, and it kind of left it like I was talking to my friend, and it's like I think she could spin off some if she wanted. Like I hope they make more because it's a sister duo, and so I hope they
Yeah.
make more spooky books in the future because I like them.
That would be awesome. And she did the same at the end of Scratch. Like there's a little bit where like this group could become like the Scooby Gang or something. And
Yes. Yeah. I like that when they leave it like that. So it's like if it's just a standalone, it definitely has a solid ending. But it does leave it open just enough that if a second or third book come out, like it smoothly transitions into that.
Yeah, and I feel like in middle grade books they do that a lot because it's like, it leaves it open enough to where if they want to make another one they can, but if they don't, it still kind of wraps it up enough that it's okay. Because like I just finished a book that was kind of like that. I'm like, I don't know if it's a standalone or if it's going to be a series because it could be because of how it ended, or it could just be open ended and stuff. So.
Sure.
And everything. And so Amy says it's kind of sad at the same time how the whole tragedy of the SS Eastland was almost forgotten in time. Yeah.
I did enjoy that at the like almost like the fourth quarter there, third quarter, they were finding out about that type of the story of the Eastland and like doing more of like that type of research on things. So we really got to hear that point about the tragedy. I thought that
and
was
you can go online to like the museums she was talking about. You can go online and see about the SS Eastland and things.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think also if you like that kind of a thing in your middle grades, then you would also like It Found Us because it has another kind of thing I'd never heard of before, and I had to look it up online, and it's like, oh, this was like a whole thing, and it was like I kind of like that when you incorporate that into a ghost story. I like it.
Yes.
I do like that, and it makes it easier for me as a teacher to be able to go, okay, this book that I really enjoy, I can share it with my students, and we could even incorporate it in class.
Mm-hmm.
Like we could read it and look up and do
it's kind of like a history lesson.
Exactly. And I always thought in school, whenever we learned anything that was based on like something real, it just made it more interesting and more fun to learn about. And we were able to do the research and just like be more into it that way. And it was like, oh, this was something real that happened. So
yeah,
I think that adds to it.
Hi, Annie. She says, hi, all. I liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. I like the integration of details of everyday life with the haunting. I think the contrast made it scarier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and hilarious at times, like when she's trying to get dressed and her entire dresser is just like flooded.
Yes.
She's like, I have to wear dirty pants because,
And I always think those are funny because they're like, was it like her mom's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with your drawer. Whatever. It's completely dry. There's nothing wrong with it.
But you're like, but yes, there was a big thing going on. That's funny.
And Alicia said, I really liked getting into the history. You could feel the author was sad that not a lot of talk is around that history.
Yeah, that's true. It did make it a good way for her to bring it to an audience of people outside of Chicago that probably didn't know anything about this. So
Annie said that her favorite part of the ghost story is when the characters do research to find out who is haunting them and why, and they get into the history. Yeah.
I especially when the little boy, and obviously we're going to go spoilers, when they find out that like that was the boy went there like looking for his parents and like all the things he had said to her were like in reference to that, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. So, were you surprised to learn about like all this Chicago, all about Chicago through the reading? I didn't know it was so haunted.
I didn't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Beth. You were going to say something.
No, you go ahead.
I was just to say it was a surprise to me because it's not. I don't live there, so it's not any sort of like. It was interesting because why would we have known about it? So it was a cool way to like learn about something that happened somewhere else.
Well, I think if you are somebody that lives in Chicago, you probably know all about the haunted history of Chicago.
Right.
But I think that's what was fun about like the ghost tour with the bus.
Yes.
Is because if you felt like you were kind of getting your little haunted tour through Chicago on the bus.
It was very cool. I like that.
There were a couple of them, like if you watch shows, especially like the weird paranormal shows from like the late 90s, like you would have heard of a couple of these things just because they did an episode, right? X-Files would have done something on, you know. But
Yeah,
to
like
have
I
it,
think some of them, like I probably knew about in the back of my mind or something, but I just had
like
forgotten about them.
the
Air Force
theater, I was like, oh,
little
I've heard about this. Or I've
yes.
seen riffs off of something like this. And I had heard about the Eastland, but I didn't know like all of the other stuff and the details. And, I just knew that it didn't get as much press as Titanic did because it was just like a bunch of families out for a picnic on the water or whatever. And then it just went to crap. So learning about all the extra stuff. And I loved that she could have done the easy way and been like, this kid's from the theater. Right.
Right.
And instead it was like, we learned about that and they tried to check it out. And this was obviously not that. But, the logic of a middle schooler, they're like, oh, probably from the theater where they burned, but there's water everywhere. It could have come from fire trucks, like spectral fire trucks. And they're like, probably doesn't make sense.
True.
Like she did a really good job of capturing what like my middle school students would be thinking. Except I think hers used their brain just a smidgen more than what my 8th graders would have, in all honesty.
Yeah. It was like a middle grade scavenger hunt. Like you have to. It's like we tried here. Well, no, that wasn't it. Well, what about here? And of course, then it's like, oh, it's going to be the less obscure one, that nobody really knows about. And well, then that's sad. All this happened and all that stuff. It was pretty cool. Because I knew about the SS Eastland before the book. I was surprised that it was based on that. Hi, Cajun. Just popped in to listen, but interested about the history and Eastland. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this one was too scary for Cajun. So, and Annie says, I knew a bit about Eastland from a TV show, and my husband watches a lot of history documentaries. Yeah. I was like, if you're really into history, I'm sure a lot of this stuff wouldn't be very surprising that happened in Chicago. And everything. What about that Dexter Graves? Would you like look into the face of Dexter Graves like Claire and her friends did?
No.
When I was in middle school, yes. Now that I teach middle school, no. Because I'm already sure that I'm going to die at the school behind my desk. Like I'm going to be trying to grade something and have an aneurysm from trying to read what they wrote. I don't need to know that in advance.
You would have needed to be my teacher because my writing was so small and you couldn't hardly read it anyway. That like one of my high school teachers says, I have to get a magnifying glass out just to read your paper.
This poor child. He is literally at the school for like 3 hours a day because he's a senior. And he ended up like his mom got sick or something. So he couldn't do second semester last year. So he's got to come back just for first semester, graduate at Christmas. And this kid, every day I'm like, stop writing in pen because I can't read it already. And you're writing in a hot pink pen and you're looping and scratching stuff out. Like write in pencil and you can erase it and that's fine. But this neon pink loopy pen, I'm sitting here just like, and then he can't read it. And I'm going.
We laugh. We always had our teacher, Mr. Ettenberg, remember, like first day of class, and every class after that would say the same thing. We still like blue or black ink. He would like do that. Like it was like if you wrote in any other color other than blue and black, you automatically failed the paper. You weren't going to get a grade on it. So like that was like ingrained in it. Even I went somewhere to sign like a receipt the other day and they handed me a green pen. I'm like, is this even legal? Like green ink? But like it's so ingrained in me.
My poor kids though, they laugh at me because I will not grade in red and I don't like to write in blue or black ink because I had teachers like that all through junior high and high school. And I'm like, pencils are better first drafting and then we can do final draft in pen or type it up. You will handwrite in pencil and you will erase. But between the tism and my eyesight, I can't, I'll look at it. And if you are writing in like blue ink and you're scribbling everywhere, my brain is just like, I can't do it. But they will make fun of me because the secretary has to remind me, like, I have a black ink pen that says Tyree on it that is on a loop connected to my desk. So that when I have to sign something for the secretary, she'll be like, there's one right there. Right there. Otherwise, we don't know where it is. I refuse to use it unless it is to sign something official for school.
Yeah. I used to hate it when I was in I think I was in high school. Either that or it might have been junior high. We had an art teacher, and I'm very meticulous about my art. I like, I don't want it messed up or anything. And you go up there and show it to him, and he's like, yeah, this looks good, but you need something like right here in red pen. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because so then I'm trying to dark over the red pen so that it doesn't look like red on. I was like, oh, it drove me crazy.
I will write on their papers, but like it's first draft and I let them pick the color I write in. And, then I make notes to the side. And I have one kid who's like that and will be like, will you put it on a sticky note, please? So we have those stuff on.
That's funny.
That's funny. So Alicia said, no, I won't even say Beetlejuice 3 times.
I'm with you, Alicia. Yep.
And then Amy says, no, I'm too much of a chicken in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Alicia said, way back when it was you say Bloody Mary 3 times in the bathroom, I didn't even attempt fate.
No, either.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think I want to know like when things are going to happen because I think that would just be too nerve-wracking. So I won't tempt fate. Nope. I feel like if I was to do it, then maybe that would actually happen. But if I didn't, then I might be able to skirt around it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and I was never one of those that wanted to try the Bloody Mary thing either, because I'm like, what if it's real? So it's like we just don't want to even
just invited that trouble into your life. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And Amy says, I won't even do haunted house things around town. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When I was in college, they did a haunted house in there was an old dorm that had been uninhabited for a while. They were getting ready to take it down. So they did this big haunted house in there. That's the only haunted house I have ever been to. They let the frat boys, we hadn't had a fraternity on campus in like 25 years. And frat boys got back. We got a fraternity back that first year. They were allowed to do the haunted house. Never been to another one.
Yeah, no.
Just went, Had a friend from Hong Kong who was not an exchange student, but she was over and she was so scared that we had to carry her. Like 3 of us were just carrying this tiny girl through because they dropped something and there'd been bombings when she was growing up in her part of Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah.
And she just froze up in a ball behind me and held onto my legs. And then a dude came through in like a clown mask with a chainsaw and she just had to carry her out. And then we called her mom to tell her, and her mom laughed at her so hard that she dropped the phone. She was like, it was terrible. I will not go back.
It's funny. Yeah. How's that? Cajun says, I once had a teacher refuse to walk in front of my desk when he was lecturing, and because I'm left-handed and it bothered him to see me write, I really liked him.
Yeah, we have the either you hold your hand really weird, or as I do, just turn my paper sideways and then I just write sideways. So that way it comes out correctly on the paper. So
I have kids that turn their notebook upside down and they'll flip it and then write on the back of pages.
I'm kind of against writing on the back of a page.
And see, I have other kids who are severely against writing on the back of the page. Yeah. They'll argue about it and I'll just be like, I don't care. You can write across the lines. Just do it and take your notes. I'm done.
But it's always flipping it over and writing on the back never bothered me any.
I think because I write really like I press hard.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
There was always that on, and then I just thought like as soon as you wrote on the back of it, it looked super crappy, so I just didn't do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And he says, I remember a fad when the girls were dotting their eyes with the circles, and the teachers kept complaining because they'd draw a little circle, probably.
We had a girl that had to dot them with a heart and then
Yeah, I was
filled
gonna
it
say
with
that.
red for the heart, and they were like, "We're done doing this." Like, you know.
Hi, Sharon. She says 4 stars for me. A fun read. Yay! I'm glad you liked it. So, did you guys have like a favorite character? I mean, was the main character your favorite, or was there a side character that was your favorite? Okay.
The brother was actually my favorite character because normally in middle grade books, I feel like, especially like the older brother will always like want to have nothing to do with the sister, not believe her. Usually sometimes him and his friends are the bullies. And I like that, like her brother was really there for her. And he was like, no, we're going to figure this out. I'm going to help you. I believe you. Let's do this. Like, so I think
He was my favorite character too, because I feel like with me and my brother, I have an older brother and everything, but it was always kind of reversed. Like I could pick on him as much as possible, but nobody else could pick on him. So like if and everything, and I was kind of like the one that would beat him up. So it was always backwards, even though he was older and stuff. I was just the tough one, and he was overweight through school, and so was I. But whenever I was little, or I was smaller, and he was bigger. And then people would make fun of him, and I would get mad. I could make fun of him, and I could say whatever I wanted, but they couldn't. And I felt like that was kind of a relationship like they had, because like he would scare her when she's got anxiety and she's going out to the trash bins or whatever it was, and she's afraid of the alley and everything, and he'd jump out and spook her and scare her, and that was fine. But when something actually was scaring her, it was like, okay, we need to figure this out.
He was like so on her side. I love that.
I really liked the brother, but I also really liked the friends. And so it just kind of went back and forth for me. The new friend, was her name Emily or something like that? What was her name?
It was Emily or Emma or something like that.
Something like that. I really liked that she was like, I'm not trying to take your best friend. Like, let's be friends. And then they tried to work together and became friends. And she was just like, here's the reason I do the lipstick thing. And then they're like, oh, it's the same reason you do the counting thing. It's just like, y'all know about the counting thing? And everybody just kind of went, yeah. And I really liked that. I also count, like I was in marching band forever, and it just became one of those things where when you're walking somewhere and there's a lot of people and you're just trying to get there, you just start counting your steps. Or I get anxious, so I'm like counting in my head. Sometimes it's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes I just count to like 463,000. Just so I thought it was interesting the way she put that in there, and everybody just went, "Yeah, we hear you.
Right,
we have yours. It's fine."
Yes, like you might think you're going 1, 2, 3, really slightly, but everybody else can still hear you. Or if you stop, I'm sure if you stop, they could be like, she's counting in her head because she's like, really stuck on something, probably, counting in her head or whatever. And I did like the friends, and I thought, I was trying to think back to like middle grade, and like if I was a middle grader, and I thought that was very middle grade. You've got your friend and your best friend, and the new girl moves to town, and then all of a sudden your best friend is being friends with somebody else, and you think you're being pushed out and everything. So I thought that was really well done, because I think that happens a lot in middle grade and everything. And it's like, if you just take the time to talk to your friend about what's going on, because sometimes you grow out of friendships and you grow out of friends, whether you like it or not, and it's very heartbreaking. But unless you talk to your friend, you don't know. And just to assume that she's just left you to the wayside, you don't know these things. And so it's like once
she didn't tie it to the dad, which I thought was great. Because she was like, everybody thinks we're weird because dad's doing this ghost thing in the book, and everybody's like, we kind of thought it was cool, that one kid made fun of you, and now you think everybody thinks y'all are weird. But like, we don't talk about it because we know it bothers you, but
See, they
and
were
it
very,
wasn't.
very in tune to knowing that about her, even though she didn't realize it about herself. Like they were like, just like, we're still your friend. Like we get it,
Yeah, exactly. Like we're your friend. We don't care. Your dad's cool, I guess, but like we're not trying to hang out with him. So
Yeah, it's like as soon as like she was okay to talk about it and things, and that let everybody know that she did have a ghost problem and that she was trying to figure out what was going. I mean, they were just like, "Oh yeah, we're all so on board with trying to figure out what's going on,"
We
and they're like, "Oh, I thought you would think I was weird." It's like,
and
no,
they're like, no.
yeah,
We
it's
had
cool.
it when we were in middle school. It's funny enough. We had a family, so there was a brother and sister that went to our school, and their dad was from Greece. And our middle school was at the bottom of a hill, and he would ride on his skateboard just for his exercise to go to his job as a server, the father. And he'd have his elbow pads and his knee pads on, and he'd wear his server uniform in a backpack. And just the time he would be going to work, he would skateboard past the school while we were all at recess. And of course, when he would see his kids, he would wave to them. They were mortified over their father doing this. They were so embarrassed. I remember the son, John, he would even say oh, who's that weird guy waving, pretending he was waving at someone else. They didn't want to admit this was their dad. And literally no one cared that he rode the skateboard. No one thought anything about it. They were
I
just
was
so
like, some people probably even thought, "Hey, that's cool that your dad's like skateboarding."
skateboard and stuff, right? Yeah, exactly. They thought it was such an embarrassment, and literally no one else cared. So
Amy says, I'm also spooked by the idea that Inez statue in the Graceland Cemetery, that is also another popular one I've seen mentioned in a lot of books.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Cajun said she turned her paper sideways to you. Alicia says, I agree, the brother was my favorite. And Amy says, my favorite character was the main character, as I had and still do of being out in the dark in the Ike Alley. So could kind of
Yeah, very understandable.
So you never know who is out there in the world we live in today. Yeah, exactly.
I think for me too, I don't want a raccoon or a possum to come out and attack me if I would be in the alleyway. So
yeah, and I think since I've grown up in the country, I have a lot of different feelings about that kind of thing, because I mean we hear strange noises and all that kind of weird stuff out here that I would probably be like, what's behind that? I'd be looking to see if
looking for it.
Yeah, me too. Is it a raccoon? Is it a fox? We have a fox. I'm like, is it a fox?
Yeah, because we have we definitely have our share of skunks here, but we do have coyotes and a few fox that run around, and we even have some of the bigger ones like the mountain lion type things and stuff. When we go on a walk and we heard this screaming out in the woods, and I was like, "Is that a werewolf, or is that Bigfoot?" And Dad goes, "It's probably a mountain lion." Like, probably, but it was like, yeah. And we just kept walking like it was no big deal.
Unless they're rabid, they're not going to come up on you, or if you walk on their baby. But you know,
well, that's what it's like. It was far enough away that it's not like they were going to just pounce on us or something. So,
see, I feel like I love that we all live in a different environment, because what you guys are talking about is terrifying to me. Meanwhile, yesterday I passed 3 meth heads. One was going to the bathroom on the floor, and I'm just rolling my eyes and just walking right past them.
That would probably freak me out a little bit more.
Just just let me go. Just keep going. Yeah. See, it's totally opposite of
could not. Old Methany that lives a couple of blocks that way, she drives by, and I'm like,
oh yeah, there was one. He was in his wheelchair, bent over. I'm like, is he on fentanyl? What is going on right here? But I'm like, do not approach, just keep walking, and
don't make eye contact.
Yeah, that was when I went to Chicago for the very first time. There was this guy out there, and he's trying to get money, and we were at a ball game and stuff. And my friends that are from New Jersey, by the way, they were like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And they got some change, and they gave him some change and said, "Go away," or whatever. But I'm like, oh, okay, this is and they're like, "Oh, it's no big deal. Just tell him go away." And he just went away. It was funny though, because he was also one of the guys had a beard, and he's like, I like your beard, man. He's trying to touch his beard, and he's like, back and get away from me.
Exactly.
It was funny. Because I really like the friendship and how it was highlighted that you do not always know what someone is going through.
Very true. Very true.
And Annie liked Claire.
I like how they connected that to the story of the boy, because like we don't know what all's going on, and then she was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. It really did tie in, but not in a cheesy way either. You know, it was just like the nice touches of like, oh wow, like made you think about it.
Just like life is cyclical kind of thing.
Yep.
I liked that.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
I feel like we've touched on some of these like questions that I had on here in a roundabout way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking at something else.
Have you, Beth, have you read any other Lindsay Curry books?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I have a couple on my list, and like one of her earlier ones I was really excited to read, and I cannot remember if I read it or what it was. So
Well, there's What Lives in the Woods.
I didn't read that one.
And there is The House on Peculiar Street, something.
Yes, that one. And I can't
Haunted-
remember. That's the one, but I can't remember if I read it or not.
And
I
then
know I follow her on
I've read all of them.
Instagram.
She's like one of my favorite spooky middle grade writers, which I'm kind of bummed. And so because I've seen the book that's coming out next year, and it's more of a mystery and not a spooky book. So I'm like, oh. But at the same time, I'm like,
Incident on Shady Street.
yeah, that's it.
I did read it, and I gave that one a 4 stars.
Yeah, that one was cute.
Nice.
And I've liked all of her books. I really think that I think she's upped her game a little bit from like those to like Scritch, Scratch and things like that. I don't think she always put in like a little bit of history, but it seems like the last 2 books, at least that from my memory, she's put in like that historical aspects of a tragedy that happened, and that's why there is a ghost. And not for the life of me. Oh, The Girl in White. That was another one.
That one, yeah. That's I like how that like some of the covers like tie in together, because I feel like that cover has like similar vibes to the Scritch Scratch cover too.
I just think that her newest one, the cover's too spooky. That's what prompted me to do like that video I did about spooky covers in middle grade. So I don't know if you've seen that one, Beth, or anything, but I was wondering, if the covers of middle grade, covers for spooky books have gotten a little too spooky.
Some of them are very scary.
Yeah.
Because this is the one. And so all those who
I was
don't
going to
like
say, is
spooky-
it Found Us? Because I was just looking at her stuff.
Yeah, I
That is
really
pretty
liked
creepy.
this one. I give it 5 stars, just like I did Scritch Scratch, but because I really like the contents inside, I just don't like the cover.
Do you guys think that after everything that happened, if her dad needed her to help out on the bus again, she would have?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think she'd be more open to it.
Yeah.
Well, and I also like that once her dad, I think her dad knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, he's just like waiting for her to say something. He didn't want, I think you can kind of tell, when you walk into something and they're all like,
Right.
There was just this horrible thing that happened inside the house, and they're all like freaked out, and the dad walks in.
And then stop and like, oh, hello. Yeah.
That he knew something was happening, and like he's seen her on the bus. She was looking back at something when he's trying to get her attention. He knew that she had to see something, and since he's so open to like the whole idea of ghost, and everything. It didn't like, it probably the first thing he thought of is, oh, I bet she's seen a ghost,
Right.
maybe she'll say something, but then she didn't say anything.
It would
And
almost make it like how cool, like how much has the dad ever seen anything, or how much has he seen, and that type of thing too.
And I like that he was, they were going to work together on like a book about
Yes.
the SS Eastland, make sure that they were never forgotten and all that kind of stuff.
It was like a nice tribute too. I really liked that. That was the plan. Yeah.
And Amy says, I do want to read more books by Lindsay Curry. I enjoyed Scritch enough to try more of her books.
Agreed.
I would say her less scarier books to me was the Peculiar Incident on Shady Street. That one, it's spooky, but I don't think it's quite as level of spooky as these are. The What Lives in the Woods is kind of spooky, and I think she gets spookier as she kept like the progression of her books. The spookier they kind of got, and everything. Because the Girl in White had quite a bit of spooky elements into it, I think. I'm trying to think of if the Girl in White, because it's about Mary something, but I don't know if that was based on an actual or if that was made up. I can't remember. And Annie says, What Lives in the Woods, my favorite of hers. I almost didn't read it because I thought it was about monsters in the wood. Haunted houses are my favorite genre of paranormal. Yeah, that's why I always say I think the title of that book is a little misleading because you think that it's something that's in the woods.
That's what I would think, yeah.
And it didn't have hardly anything to do with anything in the woods.
Oh, but does that kind of mean what lives in the woods, like the wood of the house, like the frame of the house?
No, I mean there was like it had a ghost story, but it just didn't. It had more to do with the house than it did the woods where they were, or whatever I thought, and everything. If I'm remembering right, and I think Sarah from the Bookish Near read it and said that didn't have anything to do with the woods, and I was like, so
bad title maybe.
Yeah. Amy says, I think color should help on the bus more in the future. I think everything that happened to her made her a believer. Yeah. And that's why I was like, if they wanted to make like another book that involves like all the characters from Scratch, I think it would be fun. They would all be, I could see them all being like on the bus. They're all going to be tour guides on his bus. They're going to want to all help out. The brother, the friends.
Yeah, I would think that too. As soon as like, even if she just went by herself and like she saw somebody, they would immediately go into like detective mode, researching where that person could have been from or whatever like that.
Yeah. And Annie says, if we don't like covers, we should remember to put that in our review. Sometimes I forget to, and I do think covers are getting too spooky. Yeah, and I don't think I mentioned it in like when I talk about it, but I don't know if I mentioned that in like my Goodreads review or anything. That
True.
Yeah, I'd never do that. Like when I do a written review, I'm never like, oh, the cover led me astray or whatever.
See, and Amy likes the cover of It Found Us. I may try that one next. And I do think if you like Scritch that you will like It Found Us. That one had a really interesting like ghost story about a train and some clowns and a circus and kind of weird things and everything that I never heard about and stuff. And that there's actually a place where the cemetery is that they talk about in the book and everything. And I wondered where the elephants came into play.
Now that makes sense.
I was like, I don't understand. And you get it, it takes a while. You get really into it. I thought it lagged, kind of like maybe what you guys thought. I thought it lagged a little bit in the middle. Mm-hmm. But then once you really get into like what is going on, it really ramps up like the spookiness and everything happening, and you get started to find out why they're being haunted and who and everything. It went really fast. Like that last part, I'm like, don't bother me. I got to finish this to find out what happened.
True.
And he said, I said that to the author about a title, and she laughed and said the title was a red herring.
I guess I could see that, but I feel like a title and a cover could make or break somebody reading it, you know?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
I think you
I
shouldn't
think
judge
so.
by that, but I think sometimes that's what you have to go on.
Yeah, I do judge things on covers. I am a cover judge, and I think that is a, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting, even though I know I shouldn't read it because I fantasy books, like especially like young adult and adult fantasy. I think some of the covers are so pretty. It's like
Yeah.
that. I was watching one of my friends, Cat from Cat's Novel Adventures. She was showing her. She got the new Cassandra Clare book in an Alcrate edition. It was so pretty.
Yeah.
It's like I want that just because it's so pretty. But have I ever read the Mortal Instruments or anything that has to do with that? No, but they're so pretty.
And some of those, like I read the first 4 or 5 Mortal Instruments books, and by the time I got through the last book that I read, it was the last one out at the time, I was like, I'm done with these. I'm not a huge fan of her writing. The story was so convoluted. I was just like, I'm done. I have them on my bookshelf, may revisit them eventually. And then I see those pretty covers and whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. I want it. Will I ever read it? No.
Yeah.
Did I like them enough to buy a new? No.
Yeah.
But would I possibly spend money if I had it?
Yes,
Yes.
for the
Yeah.
pretty book, yeah.
It's so pretty.
Yeah, and I have to make myself, and I've been trying to do that a lot lately, step back and just say I'm not going to be interested in that, even though it's pretty and I like the way it sounds. Because like Christina Henry, she's one of the authors that I just had to say nope. Because she was a one-hit wonder for me. I absolutely loved one of her books, and I've not liked any of the others since. But they always sound so good.
There you go. They can get you like
I
that.
just like, no, I can't do it. So I have my friend read them. Barb reads them for me, and then I'm like, "Do you think I would like it?" Because for the most part, she's always like, "No, you wouldn't like that one." So I'm like, "See."
I do that with Fiona from Reads and Eats. She'll read it and then she'll message me and be like, "I liked it, but you would hate this."
Right.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks for saving me that.
And I've been doing that a lot with like horror and thrillers and stuff too, because I'm just like, oh, they sound good. But I told my friend, I said, I don't think I'm a thriller reader. I think they sound good, but at the point I don't, or I have to have more of an action packed thriller. In my dreams, I Hold a Knife was not one of them.
Yeah.
Even my friend didn't like it, so I was like,
what is it? That Grady Hendrix book that everybody's just like, oh my God, I loved it so much.
Vampires?
The Southern Guide to Vampire, or
No.
the Haunted House.
The IKEA one?
The How to Sell a Haunted House.
Okay.
Like the new one. I have it. I bought it. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's so. I've read the first like 4 chapters, and it's just this woman like complaining about her little brother, and like she's a single mom and everything's just terrible, and now her parents are dead, and like I haven't even gotten to her parents' house.
You're just like,
I keep putting it down, and then like 3 weeks later trying to read a little bit more and be like, no.
Yeah. So then you move on.
And that was like me in the September House. I didn't like it either, and everybody loves that one, and I'm like, so I'm thinking, I'm like, I got to come to the realization that I'm in a different phase in my life, and I don't like horror like I used to. I go through these phases with books. I think middle grade is become like one of my favorite kind of go-to things. It seems like these days. I've read like a ton of middle grade this year. And then just mysteries and stuff. I haven't even read that many cozy mysteries. I think I read so many like the last couple of years that if it's a favorite, and even some of my favorites, it took me a while to get to the next book that I needed to read, even though it was already out and everything. So I'm like, I think I just like the regular like mysteries and historical mysteries, and I'm liking my middle grade. And I like middle grade spooky books, but I don't like necessarily young adult or adult spooky books much anymore.
Yeah, no, you go into your different phases at different times, and it's also based on what currently that genre's style is. You know what I mean? Like how we talk about in cozies often, like we're moving more into this like millennial cozy type of thing that a lot of people don't like.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that phase is going to go away at some point. Maybe we'll go into something else that you'll really enjoy, and then you'll go back to that genre.
Well, and for me, I mean, putting aside the fact that I am literally doing a graduate degree focusing on middle grade, so I have to read them.
Mhm.
Just the way that they're written, when you you find a good set of middle grade authors, or a piece of it, like the part of the genre, right? The historical fiction. I've been really into like the migration fiction, where it's based on somebody's grandma coming over and written for eighth graders or whatever. So you get the story and you still have the emotions and whatever, but they layer it more. So you get like rounded characters and a rounded story, and you can fill all the fills, and there's still a fart joke in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're reading the adult version, it's just like everybody died, and there was this asshole over here that was laughing
And
at
there's
them.
pages and pages and pages and pages and pages to tell you all about that.
Yes. Like the I can't remember what it's called, and I know it's right here somewhere, but these shelves are terrible. Anyway, it's all about a dill in the desert, and it's narrative nonfiction, and it's really well written, and it's even like banned in, I think, Alabama, because it's one of the areas where this desert connected. And it's great, but it is an adult narrative nonfiction, very well researched, all about these men that died in the desert, and some of them were found stumbling around, and they never did find all of the bodies and whatever. And the whole time I was reading it, I was like, if we could just take this and turn it into a middle grade, then everybody would read it, and it would, it won some awards, and it's been banned from being read in high schools and whatever. But if we could just layer it, because we would get like his family was left behind, and now his widow is sad, but he died of dehydration in the desert because he was stupid.
Yeah.
And then 30 pages of them stumbling in the desert and being in a puddle of the sun. Just
it's sometimes it's like they're too wordy. They're just too wordy. Like I noticed that, I think last year for nonfiction November, or maybe it was this year. It was for People April. I think it was that. I think her name is Elizabeth from. Oh, I can't remember the name of her, but she did a People April. And so I tried, it's about reading biographies. So I got some of those. Who is Mark Twain? Who is, and I was like, okay, I found my nonfiction right here. Cause I was like,
those are the best.
And I learned all kinds of things by reading some of those. And I didn't have to read like this book that was like 300 to 400 pages.
And because they kind of get to the point more. Like when I was reading that Vanderbilt biography, and like some of the stories were good, but most of them, like, I don't want to hear about your great 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 aunt who insulted some other famous person because she didn't have on the pearls of the day. Like, I want to hear about like either the rise or the fall. Like the little details like that were kind of too much. And too many that like kind of made the story boring, like I wish that didn't happen as often. And I feel like in middle grade they kind of go past that because it's just not the attention span of the people we're going for.
One more question that I have that's just middle grade based in everything. So that if you read for like Halloween, like what was your favorite one? It didn't have to be like Scritch, but I mean, so did you have like another favorite book that you read? I'm curious. I haven't watched your wrap up yet, so
haven't done a wrap up yet. So
Alicia said that she reads a ton of books based on the cover, and most of the time they're pretty good.
There you go.
Most of the time, it's those other times that I'm like, oh, you got me.
I would say real quick, my favorite one, looking at what I've rated, I would say Stacy and the Haunted Masquerade by Anna Martin, which is a Babysitter's Club. I liked that one, and I think I liked that one particularly because like there was a story of like a mystery going on with the girls in the middle school. There was like a pranks going on and stuff. And then there was also like a mystery of like why they didn't have a masquerade dance in so long. And like, so like they kind of had to like do the mystery of the current and the mystery of like what happened in the past. And like, I just enjoyed the backstory of that a lot, like, and how it like tied into this one now. So, but I don't really think I had much bad reading. I enjoyed all of the Halloween books I read. I enjoyed all of the horror novellas that I buddy read with Sharon, which is something I would never really pick out for myself. So I really did enjoy most of those. So.
I think I need to try some horror novellas. I always say that they're too short, but then maybe they aren't. Maybe they're right for me because all these other books that are too long, and I'm like, oh, just wrap it up real quick.
I do. I feel like Ben, they hit you with some action or some disgustingness right from the beginning, and it's like maybe 100 pages. So they're so limited that they don't have time to waste time.
Yeah.
The one that we DNF'd was the longest one, and that was 252 pages, and we like got so bored early on that one was.
What one was that? Do you remember?
The Goblin Forest by Mark Starry.
I've never heard that one.
The father was so juvenile. Like, I feel like it was written to be a child character, and then he turned it into a parent. It wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. So.
Did you have a favorite?
Like all of my books were 3 and 4 stars. I think my favorite was A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. And that one, it was about a little autistic girl, a high functioning autistic student who she lives in Scotland, and her teacher starts talking about the witch trials, the European witch trials, and how some of the people there in Juniper, Scotland, were tried as witches. And when they kind of researched a little bit, and then she hyperfixated and researched more and found out something that I've always said and doesn't get taught a lot, that a lot of the people who were tried as witches were most likely neurodivergent. They had ADHD, autism, something like that, but were high functioning enough that they could mask and, work within society to an extent, but they were on the edges. So, that weird woman who lives over there with all of her goats, you got in a fight with her about flowers or something, and then your cow died 3 days later. Obviously not your fault. It's the weird chick. The weird chick over there is autistic and shears her sheep and makes yarn. Like, she's not a witch. She's just weird. And in a puritanical society, that's, And I thought that was really cool. And it layered, like, her big sister's autistic and going to college. So you get a little bit of like, she's that and how she's trying to deal. And there's a breakdown in there. And so it talks about meltdowns and friendship and how difficult it is to make and keep friends as an empathetic autistic child. And so that was probably my favorite. But then, like, out of the spooky reads, I reread some Carlos Ruiz Zafón, The Prince of the Mist, and he's my favorite author. So
I need to try him. I haven't tried him.
Definitely. I would highly suggest anything he's written, whether it's the middle grade or the adult. Like, any of it is good. But I think you would really enjoy Marina, although that is pretty spooky. There's like mannequins that come to life and move around. So, or this one, Watcher in the Shadows.
Okay.
This is probably my favorite one of his. The Prince of the Mist, which is the one I reread, is really, really good. But this one, they find, like, a young girl is found murdered in the woods, and something is like torn this big path through the woods. And there's an inventor who lives in a spooky house, like away.
Uh-oh. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, she's frozen.
Let's see if she pops back. While she's frozen. It says, I'm reading more middle grade books than I ever had as an adult, thanks to all you ladies. Sarah got me reading Ghostlight last year, and now Scritch Scratch from you, Storm. So, yay! Our work here is done. And you froze up on us, but
She's back.
Yeah,
I'm back.
Yes. All right, good.
So I would say, besides It Found Us, which was my favorite, I think Christina's Ghost by Betty Wren Wright. I have to say that really slow because I want to say White instead of Wright. And everything. I thought that one was pretty good. I read 3 of hers. I did like a whole I'm gonna read this new author that I've never tried this author before for retro spooky and everything. And I really liked all of the books that I read from her. But I think Christina's Ghost was my favorite. It was the shortest one out of the bunch as well. I think it was like an Apple, like they used to have those Apple books or something like that.
Yes, yeah. I remember what you're talking about.
And everything. And yeah, it was pretty spooky. I thought it did all it needed to do for a ghost story in a short amount of time, and had a decent amount of kind of spooky things for like a kid to read and be like, oh, this is a ghost story, you know.
I like that.
And she said, and she enjoyed both of them. So Alicia says, I don't like reading some contemporary books now, especially romance, because I think authors try too hard to check the boxes of diversity and inclusion. And all the time it feels really forced. Yeah, sometimes you can tell when an author is checking like little things off of. It's like, you can put it in there, but don't just throw it in just to throw it in. And I don't like that either.
That's why I don't like Hunger Games. I mean, it's not a contemporary book anymore, but she had it mapped out, and then the publisher was like, we want you to add a romance between her and PETA, and we want you to throw this in, and you need to take this out and change it to this. And so she ended up creating this trilogy that she had mapped out, and I think would have been amazing if they'd have let her just write a Suzanne Collins book. But instead, the publisher was like, no, you've been writing middle grade, and we want you to write this as a YA with this. And
yeah, see, and I didn't like Hunger Games. I almost DNF'd it. I barely got through it, and then I didn't even finish the rest of the trilogies.
Yeah, I read all of them, but I don't like them. I think the ending was ridiculous. It's one of 2 or 3 series where I'm like, the movies were way better. And the fact that it's Hunger Games and Twilight are like the top 2 on there is just the only reason the Twilight movies are better is because Taylor Lautner is running around on a freaking motorcycle, and I'm like, I can dig the werewolves. Let's go.
And he says, when I had to read 60 books for a child lit class, I found I really liked biographies written for middle graders.
Nice.
Yes.
And Amy says, I read 3 books for Halloween. My favorite was A Tie Between Scritch Scratch and the Babysitter's Club's The Haunted House was my favorite.
Nice.
And the Babysitter's Fright Night was okay, but I like The Haunted House one more.
This is the first October where I haven't read a Babysitter's Club mystery in since 3rd grade.
Wow.
Now I'm sad.
Now she's going to have to get off of here and read one because...
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to have to pause my cozy mystery and go read one real quick.
Yeah. I mean, it would only take you an hour or so to read it. So.
True.
And Lisa said, I really like Scritch Scratch. I also like My Roommate is a Vampire. I know contemporary romance, but it was funny and fun. And it's fun. I've heard so many good things about that, and I don't think my friend liked that one very well. So I'm conflicted. I'm like, do I try it or do I not? I don't know. It sounds kind of fun because, she doesn't know that her roommate is a vampire until, some certain things start happening and you're like, yeah. And he says, my favorite Halloween book was Splendors and Gloom by Laura Amy Schultz. It's fiction about puppet show with marionettes. Well, that could be scary all
Yeah, that sounds creepy, yeah.
And then Amy says, I'm in the minority as I love books and the movies. I love the books and movies of Hunger Games. And just like with the book, I watched the first Hunger Games and I haven't watched the other. So I didn't make it very far. But I have watched all the Twilight movies and I like them, but I was like one of those that I hated like the first two Twilight books, and I thought book 3 and book 4 were like way better, and I like those. And I know a lot of people that really like Twilight, like the first two more than they did the second two. So.
I'm trying to book 2 ticked me off so bad because like Edward was protecting her and then Edward left to protect her. And then like the first half of book 2 or 3 or whichever one it is just like blank pages, basically.
Yeah, it was so boring.
You're like, what is happening? How did this go to print?
It was supposed to, I think it was supposed to like Twilight was Edward's story and New Moon was Jacob's story. And then you get to find out who she's going to choose or whatever at the, you know, or something.
She
and
chose
like,
wrong.
I think so too. I was always Team Jacob.
100%.
That's why I don't like love triangles, because I always pick the wrong person. You know?
I feel like a lot of times for me in a love triangle, and I'll say this particularly thinking of Twilight as well as Gilmore Girls, in the end I choose the girl shouldn't get either one of them. That's usually how I wind up thinking, like, these two guys are way too good for you. You couldn't make up your mind. Like, they should both move on.
Although I'm 100% Twilight, Team Jess, by the way. Always Team Jess in Gilmore Girls. But you're right. I was like, dang, Jess is way better than you, Rory. Like, you do you, boo-boo. Go screw up with Logan, because Jess deserves better than what you gave him. Freaking Dean was married.
Yes, but even in the beginning, let's put that aside for a moment and go, even in the beginning, Dean was so nice to you and you cheated on him with Jess. So you didn't deserve either one there either.
Yes. And then we were all surprised when she was like, he's married, but I'm going to go ahead because he loves me. Like, yeah. you done cheated on him already.
Right.
So
you already messed up.
I've never watched the Gilmore Girls, and I think I tried it. I watched like 2 or 3 episodes, and I never went back. So
no, you need to get to episode like 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to move into it a bit. Like I usually even always skip over the first few episodes when I rewatch or whatever.
Because it seems like everybody is like, if you're a book lover, you've got to watch Gilmore Girls, and everything gets, you know, it's Gilmore Girls meets this, it's Gilmore Girls meets that, and it's like, I don't know, I've never watched it.
But that's what you've already, you know what? But I feel like when people say that, you already have to have that, like, you've had to have that vibe going for a while in your mind, and like that you'd say, oh, this is very Gilmore Girl-esque. Like, I don't think somebody could just sit down and be like, well, I like fall in books, so this is Gilmore Girl, so I'm going to just sit down and read this now. I don't think it works that way, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of them that say they're Gilmore Girls and whatever, and then you read it and you're like, where's the Gilmore Girls?
Yeah, a leaf fell on the ground while they were drinking a coffee, and then therefore it's Gilmore Girls-esque. No, it doesn't.
She went, ooh, it smells like snow. Oh, Gilmore Girls.
Right, yeah, that's what a lot of that is.
Amy says, plus I love Twilight, not the sparkling vampire part, but overall storyline was good for me.
See, I think a big part of my problem with Twilight is that I despise Romeo and Juliet with my whole gut, like everything in me. I refuse to teach it. So, and it's not a requirement. You just have to teach a Shakespeare. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So my freshmen don't read Romeo and Juliet. When they ask me why, I will go on a huge soapbox about it. Like, it's bad. We should not be teaching it. Should not be.
I don't think it's that like important of a story of all of his works that has to be the one that gets read.
Yeah, it's not. It was just, it's a love story. It's a freaking story about a 20-year-old who groomed a 13-year-old because her cousin wouldn't give him the time of day. And then they committed double suicide after they got all their friends killed.
I'm like, it's not a love story. It's a tragedy.
Yeah. And they got the nurse done, lost her job. Ain't nobody going to hire her again. And the friar, he going to hell. They going to kick him out of the monastery. Like, no.
True.
What? No.
I do want to go back to Twilight really quickly, though. I feel like if they had, I feel like there was so much good lore about the werewolves that they could have incorporated into the movies that would have
Definitely.
made guys actually go see it, and B, would have just added so much more to the stories than
Yeah.
making it seem like the vampires were the werewolves were secondary to the vampires. There was just such a good story of their history that you could have told, and I think that would have added to it a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, and you could have taken out a lot more of the crappy stuff and just thrown that in a lot more.
So Annie said that book was creepy and heartwarming too. The one that she liked, the Splendors and Gloom. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
I like the name of it though, because it's like, oh, happy, but yet dead.
And I like Amy. She says so. In New Moon, the blank pages was months Bella spent depressed over losing Edwards. That's what I took that to mean. That part broke my heart.
Oh, 100%. But we could have had like a page and then 3 months later,
Right.
something.
Right.
That could have been a novella. We could have skipped over that part. Just get
So
to the
true.
100 pages tops.
Yep.
And Cajun says, I've never seen any Gilmore Girls, so the comparisons is not enticing to me. LOL. Yeah, that's like me. It's like, yeah, since I don't know, it doesn't bring me in. I have to try to see, have I, whatever it's being compared to, because it's usually Gilmore Girls and
Something
so
else.
it's like, so have I read something else? Because maybe, because then it's like, I think sometimes it's bad comparing books too. Because even with middle grade books and everything, like they'll compare them, it's like if you're going to compare like this new spooky book to like Whispering Pines or Scritch Scratch or something like that, you're going to have a big, thing that you're going to have to, if I read that and it's like horrible, then I'll be like, why on earth did you compare it to you? A lot of shoes to fill there. A lot of shoes to
Right. What is the comparison though? Is it that somebody's dad is a bus driver? Was that the whole comparison? Like, so, or was it like a
different things you can compare things to? Yeah, it's just, does it have the whole vibe? I think the one time I thought it was actually fairly correct was with Whispering Pines when it said that it was Stranger Things meets the X-Files or whatever.
Yes.
I thought that was very good comparison.
Yes.
A lot of times their comparisons are so off base, but I thought that was very good.
That's true.
And everything. But yeah, a lot of times they'll compare, especially whenever they compare things to Stephen King or things. I'm like, that's a lot of big shoes to fill for a lot of people. So, and then that'll also push a lot of people away because there's a lot of people that don't like Stephen King. So it's like, you just.
And then when they compare middle grade books to stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're like, my 10-year-old has never read or seen Carrie. So why is that the comparison we're making at this point?
Right.
Like,
and again, what's the comparison? A girl cries at prom. Is that the comparison?
Yeah.
A girl
somebody put red paint on something. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to say it's like, so a girl was bullied. It'd be what I would think the comparison of that might be. But then there's so much more to that story than a girl being bullied, though. So it's like.
And we're getting to the point where, like, some of these comparisons, too, they're like, oh, this is Mean Girls meets whatever. These kids don't know what Mean Girls are. Do you know how old I feel on a daily basis when I make a quote or I compare something and they're like, what?
Since you guys are. We're all around the same age. When somebody at work said something about Mean Girls, I'm like, or it was for last Halloween. You should dress up as Mean Girls. I'm like, why? I could dress up as Heathers. And they were like, who's Heathers? I was like, I'm like, okay, clearly you don't know that Heathers would have killed the Mean Girls. So we're just going to stop the conversation.
100%, yes.
They weren't feeding you pills to get fat. They were like making you commit, whatever. But anyway, you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
I made a comparison the other day and it was the funniest thing to me because I have a senior whose parents have raised him correctly. He is like a 35-year-old man in a 17-year-old's body. Okay. So I was trying to talk about symbolic characters. We were talking about different kinds of characters because they're writing a short story. All of my classes are doing NaNoWriMo adjacent work. So they're learning about how to write a story. And we're doing that during journaling time. So I'm explaining to them the different kinds of characters you might use. And I said a symbolic character. And so I'm trying to scramble to come up with something that they would understand from like now. And I get them all taken care of. He is so confused. And I had to look at him and go, Naked Indian, Wayne's World 2. He goes, oh, I felt so seen. And the other 7 kids in class were going,
what? Right.
what's a Wayne's World and why is there a naked Indian? We don't call them Indians. I'm like, that's his name.
Oh my God, that's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
You gotta love it. Different times.
It's my favorite time when I get to do things like that because I will say something and everybody else looks at me crazy and he'll be like, he'll finish the quote or whatever.
Yep.
I'm like, yo, mama raised you right. I'm so glad I have you because literally nobody else understands me.
It's like when I used to work at McDonald's and I would talk about Miami Vice or something, and they're like, what? And because I'd say Don Johnson or whatever, and I'm like, Miami Vice. And they're like, I go, Nash Bridges? And then they would be, oh.
Okay.
That's funny.
Because I was like, okay, at least we get something, but yeah. Okay, so I think we've probably come to the end of our chit chat. I mean, we could probably talk about books forever, but I have to go cook my father something or he'll get mad. And I told him I wouldn't be long, and I'm already over the 15 minutes over what I said I'd be. So
blame it on me. He can come to Texas and take it up with me.
Well, I told him, he's like, I said I'd try to be about an hour, and he's like, oh yeah, but you'll get chatty, so it's okay. He knows. He knows when I'm chatting about books and things like that I get.
He'll start yelling up the stairs, my stomach's grumbling. You know, it's like...
He would probably say something like, Dresden's hungry because my dog.
There you go.
Because the dog gets fed around the same time.
That's how to do that. Like,
right.
Hey, the dog's hungry. Come on.
And while you're down here, you know.
While you're up.
Right.
But I had a lot of fun chatting. This was my first time doing this, so I wasn't quite sure how it would go. But I think it went pretty good. And
honestly, between the two of you guys, between May and October, I feel like I've read so many good middle grade books, like off your guys' recommendations and just topics and like the themes that you guys picked this year, that it was like, it's just been so much fun to read all these middle grades. So thank you guys for your suggestions.
I definitely enjoyed
y'all have
y'all
have got me on a couple of really good ones.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And this was a good one.
It's a lot of fun to see what everybody else is reading because there's so many books out there that everybody, comes up with something. I'm like, oh, I have. That's why I'm like, I make a TBR and then I look at everybody else, what everybody else is reading, and I'm like, there goes my TBR because I'm like getting all this other stuff.
You see all the good ones, yeah.
They make fun of me in our doctoral classes because we'll be talking about like what we're reading for whatever class or whatever, and then they'll be like, okay, Beth, what are you reading this week? They'll be like, I've got these 3 audiobooks and then this stack of other books, and then I've got the school books, and they're just like, why? Like, well, Storm said this one was good, and Lee said this one was good, and Sarah's reading this one, and they're just like, never mind.
They don't understand that booktube life. They really don't.
Yeah. It'll get you. It's like, oh, yeah. Do you have anything coming out? A video or anything, Lee, coming out?
I don't know what I have coming out yet, so I've got to figure out my next move.
Me too, because I don't have anything.
I need to do a wrap up for Halloween.
Yeah, I did that. So
there you go.
But everything has been so insane. I was looking at it today, and I was like, I should probably do those. Like,
get it wrapped up and then move on.
Get something done. But yeah,
and I honestly
podcasts.
I honestly don't see how you get all the reading you get done with school, with your like doctoral thing or whatever it is. And
see, I drive an hour and 15 minutes one way to work.
Oh wow!
So audiobooks are a huge thing. I can get about 2 to 3 hours on an audiobook a day. If that's the only time I'm reading. So a lot of the like articles and books that we read for class don't have audiobooks, and I'll read them on the Kindle, or during like my planning period, I'll be scanning through, making notes, and then I get to read the other stuff audiobook.
Nice.
So
nice.
Okay.
Make it work.
Yeah.
I do. As long as the little one is not in the car, because if she's in the car, all bets are off, and she's screaming because she wants to listen to music, and she dictates all the music. And our playlist is crazy, guys. It's like, I want the Scooby-Doo theme song and then the Diggity song, which is no diggity.
Oh.
And she'll be like, and then Ninja Turtles and the Ninja Rap.
Gosh, that's funny.
And how old is she? Oh,
Oh no, she froze again.
Because I see her running around all the time. I know she's got an older one and like the younger one.
Yeah. Come on.
Come on, you can do it. Come back.
There she's back now.
There you go. So
But
how
yeah,
old is the youngest one?
She's 4.
4, okay.
So, yeah. Little Monster is 4, and then Monkey is 11. And so Elena and I read a lot of the books together. But it's constant pausing and being like, what do you want, Monster? What is it? And she'll be like, and to listen to the Thunderstorm by AC/DC. Thunderstruck.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Then we're like, we have to work with her. Like, after this chapter, we'll listen to Mama's Punk playlist.
There you go.
That's a very interesting, like, eclectic music choices that she has.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so
it's a problem, but we like it. As long as she's not singing all the words in her pre-K classroom,
you're good.
Fun. But my best friend is her teacher, and she'll just be like, not right now, Melody.
Okay, so thanks for joining me with the chat and being my co-host for Halloween. And thanks to everybody that was in the chat and joined and everybody. And I'm glad everybody liked the book. Like,
yeah.
I always worry if I pick out a book, if everybody's going to like it or not.
Oh, this is a great one.
And this is a really good pick. Yeah.
And we'll see you the next time we're on something. I know we have a live for Killing Time with Cozies tomorrow. So yeah, it's Sundays tomorrow. Yeah. So I'll see everybody there. Who's gonna be there, if you're gonna be there.
Don't forget to let your clocks do whatever your clocks are supposed to do.
Oh yes.
That's right.
We don't want to be late to church or early or what it is.
I don't want to be early. I spent enough time with those people. My dad's the preacher.
That's hilarious.
Bye everybody.
Bye.
Oh,